It's this programme's first time on air since the deeply sad news of the Queen's passing, so I hope you'll forgive me for saying a few words. This shy, humble woman was thrust into the spotlight at the age of 25. Incredibly, the first Prime Minister who reported to her as monarch was Winston Churchill. It was 1952 and this young princess was now being briefed on a weekly basis by a giant of British politics and public life, Churchill himself. Britain was still dealing with the economic, military, infrastructural and societal fallout from the Second World War. The country was healing whilst seeking a new role in a changing world. The Queen would become the face of a new post-war Britain. She was to be the glue that held this country together. On her watch, prim and proper 1950s Britain edged its way out of rationing and austerity into the swinging 60s and modern housing developments, the white heat of technology, motorways, new towns, shopping centres, the Beatles and the contraceptive pill. Elizabeth was on our banknotes for the multiple financial crises of the 1970s, including the winter of discontent and that humiliating moment in 1976 when Britain faced near bankruptcy and had to go with its begging bowl to the International Monetary Fund to borrow billions. She was on the same banknotes that saw an economic boom in the 1980s. The first Prime Minister that really challenged her authority was Margaret Thatcher, who thought she was the Queen too, and they were thought not to get on. She was here for the entirety of our relationship with the EU, 47 years. And she was our monarch when full sovereignty was restored to these islands when we completely left on the 1st of January 2020. She was the pandemic queen, of course, continuing where possible to perform her litany of daily duties in spite of the COVID restrictions. And she had to mourn the loss of her beloved Philip at the height of the pandemic. You'd need a heart of stone and the absence of a pulse not to have been moved by that now famous photograph of our late Queen sitting all by herself in St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. Well, on Monday, she will return to Philip's side when she too is laid to rest in Windsor. Duty and protocol were the abiding themes of her reign. The Queen was strong and principled. She was tough, firm. She was a woman of substance, but she was elegant and feminine too. No one rocked a dress, hat and coat combo quite like Her Majesty. And she had a stunning smile. What can I say? She always looked like a queen. And she was box office too, around the world. Most countries have to muddle along with elected heads of state who are normally clapped out ex-politicians or tired public figures. The person representing us was one of the most globally recognised people on the planet. When she visited France, she wasn't staying at the George Cinq Hotel. She was in the Élysée Palace. In Washington, she wasn't put up in a five-star outfit. She stayed in the White House. Whilst being resolutely apolitical, she was, in her own way, a canny political operator, dropping occasional hints about what she thought. When the Scots were in the throes of the independence referendum campaign, she simply hinted to them to consider how they voted very carefully indeed. Talk about an iron hand wrapped in a velvet glove. And that summed her up. Authentic, elegant and discreet, all sustained by the quiet, firm and relentless power of her character. And whether it was the Harry and Meghan soap opera, Prince Andrew's scandals or Charles's divorce, she handled all of those things in the way that she handled everything else, with down-to-earth common sense, a steady determination and a stoic, very British instinct to keep calm and carry on. In the end, what does a head of state do? Well, they represent the nation. And with her humble, no-nonsense, fuss-free commitment, she was the very definition, the epitome of Britishness itself. She personified our history, our culture and our values, and she led by example as she listened to her Roberts radio every morning, sat next to her ring heater, eating her cornflakes famously stored in Tupperware. Strangely majestic, strangely down to earth, what an impossible mix this woman was. So what is her legacy? Well, she's been a solid figurehead through wars, economic crises, natural disasters, health emergencies, terror attacks, and more. And she's been a consistent steadying force at a time when our country and society has changed dramatically too. Britain is now a bold, creative, confident nation, a beacon of diversity and an economic and cultural powerhouse, all on her watch. And I think her greatest legacy is the monarchy itself and its continued existence. The royals remain stubbornly popular, now more than ever, as you can see in this live set of pictures coming from Westminster Hall, as thousands of people of all backgrounds queue around the hall to pay their respects. I like this tweet from a regular panellist on the show and a good friend of mine, best-selling author and Sun columnist Tony Parsons. He tweeted the following: "The crowds that queue for hours to see their Queen's coffin could not be more racially diverse. The faces of our country. They come from every race, every faith, and none. Our people, her people. When they tell you this country is a racist hellhole, please don't believe them." And with the international soft diplomatic power that our monarchy provides, and with the billions it brings in tourism, as well as being an integral part of brand Britain, the Queen leaves the institution in far better health than she found it. Her great achievement is that there is still a royal family. In the wrong hands, they'd be long gone by now, and we'd have some faceless elected president, God forbid. The Queen has given us so much, and we will never repay her. And she gives Queen Victoria, William Shakespeare, and Winston Churchill a run for their money as our greatest ever Briton. She was both ordinary and extraordinary all at the same time. A one-off, and a gem that shone more brightly than any of the jewels in her crown. We will never see her like again, but her legacy will be with us forever. Thank you, ma'am. May you rest in peace.